That hurt. Welcome to the Straight Red Card. On this particular show, we are going to talk about the recent response from Major League Soccer sending Nelson Rodriguez over to Seb and Herc show to do a one-on-one interview. There were threats at the beginning of the show when he said, "Oh, I'm glad you're having me on," and then Herc
glad
said,
I was invited.
Yeah, Herc said, "Be careful what you wish for."
Yeah.
We didn't get any of the "be careful what you wish for," unfortunately. Which, let me put it this way. I love Seb and Herc. I really love those two guys. I think without an extra person in the room, they tell it like it is. But once Nelson Rodriguez got in the room, Brett, in my opinion, and yours, I'm assuming too, they did not follow through.
Well, now that's the most frustrating part about all this. And again, we have like 2, 4, 6 different clips we're going to pull up here and watch.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they ask some good questions and some probing ones, but to your point, they never follow through with it. Like, why? Like, I'm going to make some things up here. Like, why are you only going to play with 8 starting teams? Well, it's to help improve the U.S. Open Cup. How does that improve the Open Cup?
Yeah,
wait,
exactly.
What?
Yeah,
wouldn't all the teams improve the Open Cup better?
Yeah, exactly. Or, yeah, it's real. The marketing's been bad. Okay.
Yeah. No pressing on this.
The marketing was bad because you guys ran it for 17 years.
Yeah.
Some ran the marketing for the U.S. Open Cup for 17 years. Some the marketing arm of MLS, and you're going to blame that on U.S. Soccer? How about you blame it on you? Because you ran it. Yeah, and that's what I was waiting for, and we didn't get it. We didn't get it. I'm kind of surprised.
We were getting built up, and then the climax fizzled out. We get built up, and the climax fizzled out. I had blue balls at the end of this. It felt like,
it was like edging with no completion.
Yeah.
The whole edging thing that what BMR was it not BMR? Somebody told us about.
Somebody told me.
Edging, yeah. And I really thought about that before. I didn't really know about it. I'm old. I mean, I know what it means now that you told me what it is, but I never really thought there was a word for it. But there are words for everything today, Brett, these days.
There are.
And I don't know them all.
And sometimes it's a shame some words' meanings get manipulated and removed. And I stand firm on the fact that words have meanings, people.
Words do, like hate. Hate should really just be hate. You shouldn't say you're hating on them. Well, I'm not really hating on you. I'm just disagreeing. Jesus. All right. So in this case,
expectations weren't met.
We're not hating on Seb and Herc. We have a lot of the same co-friends. We're not friends with them necessarily. We've never really talked to Seb. We've never talked to Herc before, but we share a lot of the same friends. Yeah. We're not an echo. But we're not an echo chamber either. So this was disappointing. It really was.
And when you're working for Fox, ESPN. Sorry,
ESPN.
My bad. When you're working for ESPN, there is a game to play. You just can't sit there and badger. But that's not to say you can't press a point. And they had the shows leading up to this interview were great. They had great points. They're talking about it. A lot of the same points that we're talking about. And we'll let's dive into some here.
Yeah, this one you were hoping for a massive erection, but what you got was just you didn't get that.
Just a flick of the nut. How would you do that?
You just got to tease. Got to tease when you thought you were getting the real deal.
Okay.
All right.
For you guys getting your MLS
Next turn it up.
Pro teams into the competition. So I want to give you kind of the opportunity to address that here first. Why is it so important for those teams to be involved in this tournament?
The 8?
No, the MLS Next Pro. Because that was the thing that they were pushing for from the get-go.
We already know the...
Well, now we can hear MLS's take on it.
But
Why?
we already know the answer. And it's because they want the MLS Next Pro players who have no hair on their nuts to play against players with hair on their nuts. They've already said why. Why are we asking a question that's already been clearly laid out in prior media reports and prior answers from Don Garber about why he wants MLS Next Pro?
There's a soft launching point. Let's get your take on this. And that could have led to more probing, because we had talked about, we've talked about in the past how the MLS Next Pro is a stupid league that they should be playing in USL Championship at this point, or USL 1 or whatever.
Against men.
Playing against men. But you know what? Garber or Nelson Rodriguez, I forgot which one said it, explained why they're not still with USL.
I believe it was Garber.
They got kicked out of the USL.
Because
is that accurate? They got kicked out?
Because they were asked to pay a small fee to stay in.
Yeah.
And instead of paying that small fee, they decided, well, we're just going to start our own hairless nutsack league with a bunch of boys who never play men. And now the only time they're going to get to play men is maybe a one-off game in this cup series.
Yeah.
They might last one game. Is that really going to build? That one game playing against men against boys, is that really going to help MLS Next Pro? No, it's not. They should have stayed, all of those teams, if they didn't hate the USL so much, they should have stayed in USL and played against men. That's what develops players. Not playing boys against boys does not develop players. Sorry.
I've got an off the wall idea, and this has nothing to do with the topic at all, really. But an off the wall idea as far as the way that the situations we're in right now, where there's MLS Next Pro, there's USL, there's MLS and all that. How do you get the MLS Next Pros to play against adults? Well, maybe you can do another Leagues Cup, but instead of playing Mexico's reserves, you could have the Leagues Cup where the MLS Next Pro can play against USL.
I mean,
you have to work that out. You have to organize and figure out how to do that with their schedule too. But there's an idea, guys. That's how you're going to do not this Open Cup, because you're right. It could just be one game.
Yeah, because if it's not a league where you play 3 or 4 games, you're potentially 1 and out. How is that really helping the MLS Next Pro players playing against men? It's not, because you're going to play against men one time, you're going to lose, and you're going to go home. And what have you gained? You've gained 1 game of experience playing against players with hair on their nuts. That's it. That's it. That's not enough.
Yeah, so I agree.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's fine. It's fine. We'll have plenty to talk about. Trust me.
More than I thought.
Look, I think the question is, why would they be excluded from the tournament?
So that's an interesting point, though. Why would they be excluded?
Because they are in all the rest of the world, mostly. Holland, you're not allowed. Ajax isn't allowed to compete in the cup over Ajax. No, it's just Ajax plays in the cup. In Germany, 2 teams are not allowed to play in Pokal. They're not allowed. That's how it works everywhere. In England, 2 teams, reserve teams, are not allowed to play in FA Cup. So don't tell me that there's like 1 or 2 countries, in the world, damn it, that allow it. And so now that's what we're going to use? No, most of the world, that's not true. You don't have 2 teams and the big boy team in the same tournament where they could end up playing against each other. That's so rare that in leagues. That is very rare. And notice he doesn't bring up any examples of the countries where that happens.
We'll talk about the point you're making here, but his argument going to be here in just a minute is that, well, they're a paid professional team and they're Division 3, so why couldn't they participate in the U.S. Open Cup? And if I was U.S. Soccer, I'd be fine. They can participate in the U.S. Open Cup, but your first teams still have to participate.
Correct.
It's all or nothing at that point.
Right.
That's what I'd say.
How about everyone? If you want to make that your argument, then we'll just let everyone in.
Because he does a great job of spinning this web as like talking about the historical relevance. When I was GM at Chicago Fire, we really did our best to try to win another Open Cup because we treated that seriously. Well, okay, treat it serious. Have all your teams play. You can work out the little minor details as far as maybe U.S. Open Cup. We can get more sponsors to pay more money as far as the winner's concerned. The traveling expenses, all that can be dealt with.
Yeah.
But this argument as far as not the senior team is stupid.
Yeah, no, it's a horrible argument, and he doesn't get called out for it, unfortunately.
Nope.
They're a professional Division III side, just as League One and NISA and all the rest. MLS invests a lot of money in player development.
Yes.
Some of the benefit of that is to the broader U.S. soccer ecosystem, and certainly, hopefully, to the U.S. national teams.
So does Bayern. So does Dortmund too. So does all the teams in England. They all have reserve teams, 2 teams, U21 teams. They all are investing. Why does this make you special? It doesn't.
But you're also investing in improving the talent pool of Jamaica and Mexico and Costa Rica and El Salvador. What's your point?
Yeah. I mean,
maybe those countries need to pay into MLS.
It's not a valid argument. Sorry.
Yeah, it's I've got to come up with a talking point. We develop players, and some of them end up playing for the United States national team, right? Right.
Yeah. So what? That happens in every country. That doesn't mean they're allowed to play in the FA Cup or Pokal. They're not. The 2 teams are not allowed to play.
Yep.
How it works everywhere, except for like 1 or 2 countries.
And youth. So we always felt that it was right and proper to give those players an opportunity to compete in meaningful games.
You had that opportunity.
I understand that.
They were playing in USL.
Yeah.
They were playing meaningful games against men with hair on their nuts. I can't say this enough. And you guys decided you didn't like USL and you didn't want to help them in any way.
It was a pittance. The amount of money they're asking was a small amount as far as the seconds. And on top of that, why were they probably pissed off? Because they couldn't control the marketing, all the money that goes into it, the sponsors, everything.
Right.
It's all control. MLS wants to own it all.
Even though it was beneficial to the academies to have their young players playing against men so they could really tell who was ready for the next level. Now they can't, because now they got boys playing against boys. And I don't care about, okay, you're allowed to have 3 overage players on every MLS Academy team. That doesn't make a difference.
Yeah.
They were playing against men. Now they're playing against boys. Now it's all out the window.
They've got Academy. They've got Academy Plus, and then they got the men's MLS team. That's all it is.
And I'm not saying some 17-year-olds don't have hair on the nuts. This is just it's a metaphor. Okay? People, so relax.
Come on.
Relax.
That for some people, a dual ownership would disqualify that from happening, although we've seen that in other parts of the world.
Name them.
Continues in certain parts of the world where a parent club and an affiliated club can compete in an Open Cup competition at the same time.
I feel like the only place that really occur would be a small country that don't have a lot of leagues, like the divisions, right?
Name the clown leagues where that's
Cyprus,
the norm.
Right?
Right. It's like that's not true of any major you're talking about Germany, England. No, that's not how it works. It doesn't work that way in France. So I don't know who he's talking about, frankly. Yeah. Thailand? Vietnam? Who is he talking about? I mean, I would ask him to name those leagues. I would ask him. Name them.
Again, even then, I'm fine. There's going to be certain aspects to how we run things here in the United States. It's going to be different than the rest of the world.
Sure.
We do a number of it already.
Right.
We have a bunch of goofy Mickey Mouse rules. We don't do pro and rel.
Jam gam.
We are tam gam. We just do some special things. So I'm fine with U.S. soccer saying, yeah, your 2 teams can participate in this as well. That's fine. But you guys have to participate too.
Right. Yeah. All of you have to participate. If you want to add the MLS Next Pro teams, that's fine with us too. We'll take all of you.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And if you really want those Next Pro teams to get meaningful minutes, start them at the very first round of the U.S. Open Cup.
Yes.
They're playing amateur teams against, 32-year-old guys who are also, stockbrokers.
Bad
out
hips.
there on the weekend. Yeah. And then you start working your way up. You got NISL, you got champion, you have the League One, then you got championship with some MLS and so forth. You got at least get a couple games in there. You got to do that.
Yeah. If you're going to do it, start them at the beginning. First round. Yep.
Last couple sentences of his, and then we'll move on to the next one.
When U.S. Soccer wouldn't permit that, that's when we decided to push still for as many MLS Next Pro teams as we could.
So MLS said no, and they decided that they're still going to push for as many MLS Next Pro teams.
But what did U.S. Soccer say no to? U.S. Soccer said no to you replacing all of your MLS teams with your MLS Next Pro teams. That's what they said no to.
Yeah.
Had you approached U.S. Soccer and said, not only do all of our MLS teams want to participate, but so do our MLS Next Pro teams, they would like to participate and start in round one. I don't think that's what they would say no to. I think they'd say yes to that. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, you're padding the number of teams that are in the competition, more exposure as a whole. I feel like, he's going to get into it later where he talks about how we took a poll of all of our fans and they didn't know when the U.S. Open Cup was taking place. I've got a brilliant concept. How about you let them know?
Yeah.
Hey, we appreciate the 20,000 people that are in the stands today's game. Just a reminder, 2 Wednesdays from now, we're going to be playing San Diego Surf or whatever.
Well, I think what he was blaming specifically was certain MLS teams that didn't take the competition seriously, who totally just ignored it and didn't mark it and didn't whatever the games. And that's something you're MLS. You can require them. Yeah. If you want to. It's a franchise. It's a pyramid system. You can require them if you to invest or to announce or to make announcements or do some sort of percentage of marketing on the U.S. Open Cup if you wanted to. You got some. They could help out too, right? And some could help out. But some's the one that ruined the tournament marketing-wise in the first place. So
yeah. All right. Speaking of advertising, let's hear what he has to say about that.
We thought it would be better for the tournament for pro teams to play non-pro opponents, or in MLS's case, for us to play non-MLS opponents and build the tournament so that there's more featured games between amateurs and pros and have the tournament build in its drama as it goes through.
Hold on, Brett.
Yeah.
That's not how you build drama. Part of the fixtures and the way they're set up and the sort of random draw is that you could possibly get 4 USL teams on one side of the draw and 4 MLS teams on the other side of the draw, all knocking each other out and having a USL MLS final. To me, that's more exciting than making a pre-set up where all the teams that advance through have to play MLS teams and they're all lose. So we only have MLS in the quarters, only MLS in the semis, and only MLS in the finals. Bullshit.
Are you telling me for the first round of Colorado would have to that you don't think could build the game properly if they're playing some amateur team out of Boulder?
I mean, I'm sure.
Are you trying to tell me that's not going to help the cup?
Somebody would bust a nut for that. But what he just said in a rather shady, but unconsciously, if you're not paying attention to the very words he is saying, he's basically saying, I want the cup fixed. So MLS teams don't have to play each other. So at the end, all we're going to have left is MLS teams. That's essentially what he's saying.
Yeah, well, his argument is, well, we can spread out the MLS teams. That way we have more eyes on those games, and that's going to improve the overall marketing aspect. Because if you have whatever, like Greenfield United versus Indianapolis FC playing each other, and then you have Colorado versus Seattle. I mean, the Colorado-Seattle is going to get eyes on the game, but the Indianapolis and Greenfield game won't.
Right.
So I mean, that's not going to help improve the league. But you're right, because he's hiding behind that feature.
Yes.
Ultimately, in the end, to get the MLS teams only at
Yes.
the end, and that's when you can start doing cutthroat, right?
And that's the great thing about FA Cup. Like every time it's a draw. So, I mean, near the end, you don't know who you're going to play. It could be that Liverpool and Manchester City have to play each other in the quarterfinals, and that's going to knock one of them out because it's a random draw. And you could have Brentford against Wigan on the other end of the, and that means that maybe Brentford gets to the final because of the randomness of the draw, which is what makes it so fun. And he's saying, no, you kill that off. Kill that.
It's another form of control. That's all it is.
Correct.
It's another form of control.
Yep.
We're very focused on standards. We think that the standards of the tournament could and must improve. The venue, the fields, the broadcast standards, how much marketing goes into the tournament. So our motivation was to try to make the tournament better.
No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't, because you had 17 years to make it better.
The broadcasting rights, the advertisement, something you guys could have done from the get-go.
Yep.
Now, as far as the field conditions, that all depends on where you're playing. We had arguments on the last two shows talking about the Snow Bowl game over in Real Salt Lake and the waterlogged women's national Gold Cup game.
Yep.
Those are some crappy field conditions.
Right.
You still have to play the game because the game was not called off. So you still play regardless. So if you're playing at some podunk high school field, you still got to play there, even if you're professionals. That's what it is.
Suck it up, Buttercup, because there are plenty of FA Cup games in earlier rounds that are played on fields that are crap in front of fans of 500 people. So suck it up, Buttercup. Also, this whole idea that the marketing's poor. I'm sorry, I got to hammer this home. You guys were so bad, some MLS's marketing wing, at marketing the U.S. Open and marketing U.S. soccer, apparently, although there are many other reasons that U.S. soccer got rid of some because it was a conflict of interest. You were so bad at it for 17 years. This is what U.S. Open Cup has become. Because of you.
Mm-hmm.
Because of you. Isn't that ironic? Don't you think? That's what Alanis would say.
Like rain.
She'd probably be wrong. She'd probably be wrong. It wouldn't be irony, but you know what I'm saying.
Very coincidental.
Yes.
So,
It's not even coincidental. It's just how it
was. Weird, isn't it?
It's just a fact.
Yeah.
It's a fact that he's blaming bad marketing on U.S. soccer for a tournament they screwed and didn't care about for 17 years when some MLS's marketing wing ran the marketing for this tournament. It's hilarious. And it's so precious. It's so precious.
So bad.
Looked at the calendar, and this is why we asked for a waiver for 2024 only when we asked for all our MLS Next Pro sides to be in, was just the overall calendar with Copa America and Nations League and the Olympics. There's a lot of players who are going to be logging a lot of time.
So the calendar for this year is pretty full, Derek. You heard him. There's Copa, there's Nations League, there's Olympics. A lot of players are going to be traveling for these games, and they're going to be playing these games, then coming back, and it's be very stressful for these players.
It's funny. It's like, all right, there's a pot of water, and you've got it filled up, 3/4 of the way, and you're like, wow, this is getting really full. This pot of water, it's going to spill over. And you're like, well, we'll just start the Leagues Cup. Let's put in another gallon of water in this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you fill the pot totally up with water, then you go, there's no more room left for any water. Well, you filled it up. You were the one going to the sink, filling it up and pouring it into the pot. Now there's no more room for any more water. I could have used some really graphic sexual pornographic ways to describe this, but I'm telling you, you filled it up.
Yeah.
You filled it up.
Well,
all right.
on top of that though, let's address what they do. You have to do in every other country around the world. They had the AFCON, the Cup of Nations or whatever, right? Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
The African Cup. And I'm going to use Forest as an example because when Gio went over there, I started watching more Forest games. And during that time period when Gio got there until present day, they had 3 players, I think it was, that were consistent starters that made it all the way through to the finals. And I think 2 of them even won the AFCON, which meant that they were gone for that extended period of time. What did Forest have to do during that time period?
Play other players.
Play other players. These teams have a 30-man roster.
Amen.
How many of those players consistently get minutes?
Not a whole lot. Maybe 15.
15 consistent.
14,
Yeah, they've got
14.
starting 11 plus like 4 or 5 subs.
Yep.
Might consistently get brought in, and it's pretty consistent as far as who it is.
Right.
So you got half a team that barely sees playing time.
Right.
Barely.
Right.
So how hard would it be for MLS in this scenario, instead of trying to adjust a cup that's been going on for over 100 years, instead of trying to manhandle U.S. soccer, how hard would it have been for MLS to simply say, hey, during whether it's Leagues Cup or whether it's whatever for the U.S. Open Cup for cup games, maybe we can adjust the roster setting where there's going to be, we can call up like 10 players from our 2 team.
You could have done that, or you could have just played the 15 guys that never get to play on your team.
Yeah. Well, I was saying call the 2 team up as backups to those 15.
I mean, you got a 30-man roster. 15 of those guys rarely play. Let them play.
Yeah.
Solves the problem.
Well, I mean, Derek, there may be. I mean, when Nations League comes around the corner here, there's going to be a couple players that leave from a lot of the teams, obviously, because it's. I mean, Mexico, Canada. Wait, is it Canada? Mexico, Jamaica, us, and who's the 4th team for Nations League?
Costa Rica.
Maybe. I can't think of it right now.
It is. It's got to be Costa Rica.
So you're gonna have a handful of players. A couple players from most teams, most of the MLS teams, will probably be venturing off to the Nations League for a week and a half. Might miss a couple games. You got other players on your squad that can fill in those roles. They come back, they take their starting spot back. Copa. Yeah, I mean, you're probably going to see less players at that point at the venture out, but still, I mean, Canada might get screwed, but
yeah.
But I mean, you have the players that fill in the roles similar to every other country around the world. They do this all. They have multiple cups.
In some cases, they have more players than a lot of rosters do around the world. Like if you look at Belgium or Holland, where they don't have 30-man teams, some of them have like 24. And you're saying, okay, well, we don't want to play those 15 guys that never get to play. It's crazy. Play them.
How many times do we see a second team player getting called up into practice and training with the first team? It's, I don't know. I feel like MLS could do something about this. Again,
it's doable.
It's all about control.
It's doable. Do not tell me that you can't make it work, even though you're saying what he's saying is the pot is full. The water's at the edge. Okay. Well, if you take a few scoops out of the water, those are the normal starters, then you're fine. Your backups can play. The pot's not yet full because you're giving your starters a rest and you're playing the back 15 guys. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
The funny thing about all this is he's like, oh, we want the MLS Next Pro teams to have these competitive games. Well, what about the 15 players that don't play at all?
Yeah.
That are in between I can't play for the U23 squad anymore, but I'm not getting a single minute here.
Or you just could have stayed in USL. You dumb idiot.
So, yeah.
And we wanted to be mindful of that.
Hopefully, you're going to skip
since this
forward
was
at some
discussed
point.
and really kind of first became public, we've heard reaction from kind of all over American soccer, but specifically in MLS, we've heard from some coaches who said that they want to play and want to win this trophy.
Yeah,
We've heard from some players who don't want to be kind of pulled out of the Open Cup.
I had marked 540, but I don't think I was supposed to go to 540 there. So, all right. Next topic here.
I mean, that was another softball. I've heard some other teams, they really want to play in this. So what? It's not about whether they want to or not, or you want to give them the opportunity to or not. They should be playing.
Yeah. Well, the idea is, well, if LAFC doesn't want to participate in it, they shouldn't have to. But if Chicago wants to participate, they should be able to. That's what they're trying to get into there.
Screw your choice. You're in the tournament. Play your back 15. If you got to play your back 15, just play them. All right?
There's more talk about the club rosters.
Nelson, you've been around forever in Major League Soccer. I remember you being with Chivas USA. You were a GM with Chicago Fire. You go way back. And I don't understand in this tournament why some teams don't take it seriously. It's 7 games. You get a trophy, you get money, and you get a CONCACAF Champions Cup spot.
Not a lot of money.
Why not let these...
Well, we talked about that. It's actually very similar to the amount of money they get for the MLS Cup.
True.
But still, as a whole, you're talking like not a whole lot of money. Yeah.
And the chances of winning it are,
sure,
it's hard.
Even if you do take it serious and the other teams don't, by the time you get to the semis and the finals, it's the starting 11 versus starting 11 at that point.
I mean, find more money if that's what it means. Of course, it's about money, I guess. Find more money. Give more money for the winner. Fire Greg or take a couple million off of Greg Berhalter's salary and give it to the U.S. Open Cup.
Yeah. As a whole, who cares about the actual pay in the end at that point? If you compensate for the travel like they're talking about now, if you compensate for the travel, at that point, the money is just a happy bonus at the end. You got your lesser players get playing time, and then you might have a chance of getting the money. The bigger prize there is the CONCACAF Champions League spot.
Yeah. I mean, the most frustrating thing about this interview is we didn't learn anything.
Yeah.
We didn't learn anything.
We learned snake oil oozes from Nelson Rodriguez's body.
That's for sure. I love Seb and Herc. Herc, don't take this the wrong way, because I'm gonna at you when this comes out. I love you, but man, we needed more here. We really did. Mm-hmm. This guy got off. He was snake sales, or what is it? Snake oil salesman. Mm-hmm. Just totally got to get a free ride on this show, which is not what I expected. No. I didn't expect you to be rude. I'm not asking you to be rude. I'm just asking you to follow through with the things you've said already. Like, I don't know.
Well, again, how hard would it be to say, well, why is it only 8 teams? Why can't all the teams participate? Well, the calendar and the rosters, blah, blah. Well, the rosters are your own fitting. You guys can fix that however you want. And on top of that, you have plenty of players who are capable of playing. Now, of course, injuries happen, and maybe you don't necessarily have 15 players that sit your 11 down and then bring everybody else. Maybe start the players who don't play much and then bring the consistent subs from the MLS games over as subs for that match too. Or something, figure it out. You can do it.
Dude, there's all kinds of things that could have been brought up as solutions to the things he was saying. We've said them right here. Mm-hmm. We've also brought up questions that weren't followed up on. And I realize there's limited time, but 16-minute interview, we got nothing. And I'm just disappointed because I respect these two guys that much because they have been the Mavericks on ESPN FC or on their show.
Well, the interview reads sort of along the lines of here are the questions we're going to ask you, and there's no deviation from that. It's like blah 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 blah, and then he's got his response blah 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 blah, and then he's got a response. It's
almost like he had the questions before the show. That's why there was no follow-up.
I wager it's a guarantee, yeah.
Because there was never a follow-up question to his answers. They just moved on to the next question.
Well, and in Nelson's defense here, the problem with allowing follow-ups and pressing and stuff like that is that you're bound to say something dumb. You're bound to say something that you probably shouldn't have said, like, God, I shouldn't have said that.
I came off
That's gonna make
this.
the papers.
I know. I came off this interview thinking, wow. A, that was cotton balls questions. And B, Nelson Rodriguez, he held himself together. He gave the standard answers you might expect. And they weren't horrible. And yet, we got no follow-up. It just killed me. It just killed me.
Yep.
In Washington, D.C., DC United has scheduled 5 in-season friendlies over the last 2 years.
This is a good one.
And they played 4
This is a good
Open Cup
question, yeah.
games in that time. They just announced DC United a partnership where they're going to play the Ethiopian national team at Audi Field this year. For those that don't know, Washington, D.C. is by far the largest Ethiopian American community in the United States.
Said that.
There's no
Yes, you did. Good
question as
job,
to
yeah.
why that game is being played. So, Nelson, help us understand how we can kind of take that fixture congestion argument when even beyond Leagues Cup, there are so many other games,
cut them off or
games that
anything
I
like
would
that.
argue are unnecessary popping up on the schedule.
So that's a great question, right?
It is a good question.
How are you possibly talking about congestion when you're scheduling all these friendlies?
And
How many people are going to be? What is the preseason cup that happens here in the States that some MLS teams happen to participate in?
Right.
Usually it's like LAFC and so forth. But I mean, are they still going to be participating in those? I mean, you have this calendar, compression of all these games, and there's no time to rest or anything like that. But you keep adding more and more stuff to it.
His answer is perfect. You can skip it because I'll sum it up right here.
Sure,
His answer is perfect. His answer is, that's DC United. We don't have anything to. Oh, God damn it! We don't have anything to do with what they schedule. That's on them. They do them, and we do not micromanage scheduling by other teams. Yeah,
this is the paraphrase, guys. But yeah, you basically it's like teams are going to do what they feel is right by them.
Right,
more or less.
That's a good answer. What are you going to say to that? Well, that's true. I guess.
Well, then I'd be like, well, then the teams can't complain about having a congested schedule.
Yes,
that's what you say immediately following that. You say that.
Correct, Brett. They should have said that. They should have said, "Hey, but then why are they complaining?"
Yeah, they have. Obviously, they have all this ample time to schedule these friendlies with the African national teams.
And then Nelson could have came back and said, well, DC United aren't really the teams that are one of the teams complaining. And then they would have been like, oh, okay. I guess he could have won that argument too.
But I mean, I guess I'd still push back and say to that point, though, that's still screaming that there's ample time to schedule these games.
It is a contradiction to the complaints league-wide. Whether DC United is one of the teams complaining, we don't know.
No, it's true.
We don't know. So he had an out regardless there. Yep. And this is like he was a good lawyer on this, but they didn't come in as lawyers from the other side. Like, maybe the fact I never finished my law degree, it doesn't count. But I got to tell you, as somebody who's a thinking person, there are almost, except for this one, there are arguments we've made already so far for everything he said that could have been in the 16, 17-minute interview. So,
well, you could have even nixed a couple of questions and then just focused on drilling in. Like, create the question and then go ahead and think of your follow-up. Because you already know what he's going to say. They've said it in interview after interview. You know exactly what Nelson's going to say.
Right.
So have it ready. Have it ready.
Drill down. Drill in. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like you're saying, well, they schedule these friendlies. Well, what about the schedule congestion? I mean, how can that even be an argument? Nelson's going to go, Seb, I never really thought of it like that. That's a great point. We don't actually have a congestion problem. You're right.
Yes.
Totally on us. We've messed up, guys.
And again, Brett and I want to be very clear about this. While we are being very critical of Seb and Herc now, we like Seb and Herc.
Sure.
We like their show. We generally like their demeanor. We like their inquisitive nature. We like their critical nature.
Absolutely love their coverage prior to this interview for this topic.
I know. That's why I watched it. I was tuning in for this, dude. When I heard he was coming on, I'm like, damn, this is going to be good.
Mhm.
And then it was just sort of like what are those things you light and they just fizzle on 4th of July?
I don't know. They have their own names. I'm not sure what it's called.
Yeah, it's just like, but it doesn't really
Like a
do
shower?
anything. It's like a stick you light on fire and it just sizzles and it has a little sparkler. This was just a sparkler that never had a bang.
Yeah.
No bang in the sparkler.
All right, final bit here is basically where Nelson kind of gives USSF credit, and it kind of shows where they're wanting to kind of go. So
to be involved.
Well, first, it's time to give U.S. Soccer some credit here because they have made improvements in the travel allowance. They have made improvements in the scheduling where we have more of the proverbial David versus Goliath and the opportunity for more of those to take place later in the tournament.
There goes USSF is doing exactly what we told them to do.
Exactly. More David and Goliath, so more of the Goliaths go through than the Davids.
It's like I really think that MLS teams should go to these lower quality teams and play there, but pay us the money for our travel because that's not worth our time. Well, my argument for USSF would be like, okay, how about you host the Davids at your stadium? Well, the expense of running that stadium wouldn't even be worth it. Okay, what's your point?
Yeah, I mean, we already talked about earlier, but yeah, this is not what I want it to be. I want it to be a random draw. I want there to be 2 USL teams in the quarterfinals playing on the top draw against one USL team versus some other NISA team. And on the bottom, because of just the craziness of the draw, there are 4 MLS teams that have to play each other in the quarterfinals. And then in the semis, we end up with NISA versus USL, and on the bottom, MLS versus MLS. And then the final, we get MLS versus NISA or MLS versus USL. That's what's exciting is the randomness. We need to bring it. Bring that.
I mean, having to take on an MLS versus MLS game early in the stages of US Open Cup, I think would offer more than a MLS semifinal and final, because it's like there's the drama there that, well, one of us isn't going to make it at this point, and it's so early in the match or early in the cup, and it'd be great if they just took that match and said, hey, you know what? We're going to treat this like it's a normal match, and we're going to go at each other.
There's no seeding in the FA Cup. There's no seeding in Pokal. There's no seeding. It's late stages. It's a random draw. We're even seeing that in Champions League. That's what makes it fun. You don't know who you're going to get.
Well, yeah, using Champions League as an example, I mean, you had the group of one of the group of deaths, at least. Was it PSG, AC Milan, Dortmund, and whomever else?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, you looked at that. You looked at it. Go, well, we think we know who's going to move on, but it could have been anybody in that group. And then you look at other groups, like, okay, well, these 2 teams are going to move on. Okay,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, unless we're talking Copenhagen.
Yeah,
that was a shocker. But yeah.
But do you think AC Milan and Dortmund went in there stomping their feet like, oh god, this isn't fair? We should have the seeded teams here, and these people should play these people.
You're making it too hard for the good teams to get through.
Yeah,
and then he's framing it like, well, we want more of the David versus Goliath earlier on. So what? All the Goliaths go through? Come on.
Yep.
Come on. I would have called that out too, but I guess they only got 15 minutes. So they got
last little bit here.
Championship teams were seated alongside the 8 MLS teams. We think that's a net positive.
No, it's puke positive.
Later in the tournament, we have more opportunities for cup sets rather than just like teams from the same league playing and defeating one another. So we think those are improvements.
Who cares?
We'd like to see improvements in the broadcast standards.
What a lawyer who could frame that way. Only a lawyer could frame it that way, and no one could see through it.
Yeah.
I saw through it first watch.
Oh, it's super slimy. All that is.
Like, call this guy out. No, that's not what cups are about. Go watch the great cups around the world. FA Cup, Pokal, even in Holland.
Mm-hmm.
There's a randomness to it that makes it exciting. You're getting rid of that. You want seeding? What is this, a US Open? Is this a tennis tournament?
Derek, come on.
Well, send this to me after you're done, and I'll edit it, and I'll put it up tomorrow, and I'll bleep out all the...
I'll put it in the Dropbox.
Yeah, I'll bleep all the F words out.
We were doing so good. It's 45 minutes, and you cut it in there like 3 times. Like, no.
Yeah, because I got pissed.
Yeah,
sorry.
No, that's fair.
All right.
Throw in a funny sound if you can.
I'll probably just... No, that's too much work. It's too much work. No, are we done?
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
Everything he said is was predetermined. The way he said it was slimy.
Yeah.
Because anybody who's not biased towards it is going to be able to look at that and go like, well, wait a second.
All I'm saying is Herc and Seb, who I love. I love those guys. Never had Herc on. We've talked to Tactical about maybe getting him on.
Yeah.
It was like a lawyer against pre-law. That's what it looked like. And Nelson Rodriguez won this discussion. And there is no way in heaven's earth he should have.
So, if you really look at what we're saying about Seb and Herc in this situation, is that our only criticism of this entire interview, from their standpoint, is there was no pushback.
No follow-up.
There's no follow-up, no pushback, because everything that we covered in this 46 minutes of his was Nelson's response.
Mm-hmm.
We got a couple other questions in there to give a little bit of a background of what we're going to be listening to, but it was never saying like, "Oh, geez, they shouldn't have asked that. They shouldn't have asked that." It was always like, "No, push on that. Push on it. Go further."
It was 80% Nelson. It was like a filibuster.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that can't happen in an interview. You have to go, okay, hold on. This is what you just said. Let me give you my thoughts about that.
You know what it kind of reminded me of? Not necessarily, but you remember that Pulisic interview?
Yes.
Where it's like, don't you think that blah, 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 blah? And he's like, yeah, I do think that actually. And da da da. And it was just like a straightforward, like, here are the questions and it's going to be asked and you're going to be pushing this direction. Nelson's like, I got the answers. Let's go.
It was a Northern Irish interviewer. Can't remember his name. Would be like, don't you think that Greg has done a fantastic job all season and that him getting you out of the group stage and whatever, that he's earned his right for another round with the national team? And Pulisic's like, yeah. I mean, Greg's done a great job, sure. And then that guy goes on and filibusters for another 2 minutes. I'm going to edit this anyhow.
Yeah.
So I guess I can say it now. But, I mean, I'm making my life harder. All right, I think we're done here.
No, that's absolutely done, yeah.
Seb, Herc, I am going to at you. Or if you post it, Brett, you can at them too. And I think you should, because I think it's only fair. We're not cowards here. We would love to have Herc or Seb on the show to discuss this interview, to discuss this one-on-one.
Yeah,
if you guys want to come on, we're all for it.
And give us a rundown as far as the etiquette of doing an interview.
Yes.
Maybe it would have been bad etiquette to sit there and push back because it wasn't necessarily, I don't know, a grill. You know, it was basically saying, "Hey, here's some questions. Give us your answers."
Yes, but as you said, it was mostly like they came with the questions, and then they didn't have any follow-up. And I just, from those guys, that's what I expect. That's what I expect, because look at the way they spar. And I'm not asking them to spar with him like they spar with each other, because like you and I, they've been doing the show together for a long time. So their sparring doesn't mean anything personal.
Well, I mean, how often do we have like Max on or Jimmy on and other people where where they'll say something and we'll be like, wait a second, hold on, one
Whoa,
moment.
whoa, yeah.
Rewind that.
I mean, we just had Max on where we had a whole disagreement, and
Melissa coming back to MLS.
Right. And then we had Cact on, and he actually ended up acquiescing a little, but now it turns out he might be right.
No, we're going to edit all this out, guys.
No, I mean, it could be that the Cact was right about the whole Reyna thing all along. And if he ends up being right, I will eat crow, and I'm fine with eating crow. But yeah, on this one, it was 15 minutes of what I would consider to be a lost opportunity to dig deeper into the answers and say that answer isn't sufficient, and here's why. And you don't have to say it that way. You can just say, well, okay, I heard what you said, but what about this? You don't have to be nasty. You don't have to be mean. When Jimmy Conrad said he didn't believe in formations in 2011, even when we thought he was full of shit, we still said, no, Jimmy, I don't think that's right, dude. Formations make a difference. And now what? 20 years or 10 years later, Jimmy's totally changed his mind. It's okay to be polite. You can be polite and ask pointed questions. I think you can, personally.
Sure.
All right. All right. That's going to do us for tonight. Like, seriously, do us, because we're probably going to end this show. It is midnight, and we're both going to go, I guess, fall asleep. But we thank you for watching, and we will be back on Monday.
Yeah, Monday.
For the live show. So join us then. I think this has been the most thorough breakdown of MLS's response. And that's going to be the headline, I think, of this. This is the most thorough breakdown of MLS's response to the U.S. Open Cup debacle. And I hope you watched it and enjoyed it, because this is about as detailed as you're going to see. All right? Until next time, thank you for watching the Straight Red Card. Good night.
That hurt.